Hi, I'm Dean Devlin, one of the co-writers of the film and one of the producers of the film.
Hi, my name is Roland Emmerich. I'm the director of the movie and also a co-writer, right? I wrote that too, right?
We wrote it together.
Yeah, I vaguely remember.
These opening credits were shot with a motion control camera over a... what was this made out of, the mask?
Well, the mask is like, I think, fiberglass. It's like a sculpture like Patrick Totopoulos kind of designed, and it was like, I think, like kind of modeled in his workshop, and then we decided to kind of like shoot it with motion control so we get a lot of like depth of field. We had the feeling it's also like for some movie like this, it's like very traditional to start on like kind of like art, you know, in that case like Egyptian art.
A quick story on the music here. Roland and I had been working very hard on the final edit of the movie and had not slept in a while when we were flying out to London to record the music. When Roland turned to me and said, have you heard any of the music on this movie? And I said, no, have you? He goes, not really. And we were terrified because we didn't know if the music was going to be good or not, because David Arnold had not, at this point, really scored an entire feature film. And we were incredibly exhausted when we showed up into the scoring stage. And when these opening credits started and he started this, the overture, we were absolutely blown away by the music he had done, and we were convinced that he had elevated the film to a whole other level. It's still, I think, the best score he's ever done. If you notice, the music changes right there on Joseph Perot's credit. And because of that, we nicknamed him from that moment on the evil Joseph Perot, even though he's not evil. Maybe a little evil.
There's a lot of kind of Germans in that credits. There was like kind of a German production designer, and now comes was the German cameraman. This is my sister. So it was like a German, Egyptian, Lebanese. Marcus comes from Lebanon. You know, very international production. By the way, like kind of produced by a French company called Canal Plus.
That was my first producing credit ever.
You hear this like subtle gong in the music.
Now, this dissolve is actually taking us into what was in the released version was used as a flashback, but originally we had intended to open the movie with the scene. Later, when we were testing the film, we were trying to shorten the film and really kind of squeeze it down into a shorter, faster version. So this scene got lost, but it was always an interesting way to open the movie and to introduce who Ra was before he was taken by the aliens.
This is a combination of model shots and a set we built in Yuma, Arizona, which is actually in the same kind of valley, you know, like where we shot the scene, also like Rambo 2 was shot.
Now, if you notice carefully, you never see Jay Davison's nipples in these shots. The reason is he refused to take his nipple rings out. So we had covered them with tape to try and show. Now, this shot actually from behind is another actor named Dax, who originally was playing him as a young boy, but later it was confusing to have two different actors playing the same part, so we reshot some of that with Jay Davison. And this is the moment when Jay Davison is taken by the aliens. Now, in this shot, the pyramids and the sun are actually, and the Nile and the boat are all put in digitally. That was actually all shot in Arizona.
Also, there was like kind of this one palm tree in the shot, which was like kind of dying by the time we were like kind of coming to the set, and we had to put digitally like kind of leaves in, so it kind of looked a little bit fuller.
Now, if you look closely at the extras in the distance, you'll see they move very little movements. That's because they're actually sticks stuck into cans of cement with cloth hanging over it, because we had a limited budget for extras, so all the live extras we tried to put into the pit, and in the distance we used stick figures.
This again was like shot in Yuma, Arizona. It was quite a huge set. Had to be kind of a lot of kind of earth had to be moved, you know, to kind of make this happen. And here, like kind of, they're now like kind of standing at this big tablet, you know, which was made out of foam.
This little girl was really wonderful.
Yeah. And here we introduced the first like kind of main symbol of the movie, which is the Eye of Ra.
This is one of my favorite shots of the movie, actually, right here. Carl Walter Lindenlaub was the DP, and he did really a fantastic job on this movie.
Also, the whole scene, you know, was the concept was like kind of to shoot the whole sequence over like 3 days only in the late sun, you know, short before the sun sets, you know, to get this like kind of golden like Egyptian look, because we had the feeling that like kind of that's the what the people connect the most with, like Egypt is like this, like a very like kind of warm, you know, evening sun.
Originally, the Stargate was painted black, and it looked like a giant tire, and we had to have it repainted at the last moment.
And the last part we throw some silver and other stuff on it.
Now this portion here, this was actually edited out of the released version, which is where we tried to introduce the idea that after the Stargate had been buried, someone had tried to come back through it, and the guards, Anubis and Horus, had been actually beamed directly into stone, which is why they were petrified here.
Which also gives you a first like foreshadowing of like Anubis and the Horus character.
Again, in the length of time is part of the reason why we had cut it in the release version.
This now was shot like here in Los Angeles. It's like a hotel in downtown Los Angeles, which is often used for like kind of for movies in all kind of different ways.
That's Vivica Limford, and this was actually her last film before she died. She did a marvelous performance in the film.
Covered with detailed hieroglyphics. When is the academic community going to accept the fact the pharaohs of the 4th dynasty did not build the great...
This was actually a scene where I had like a lot of problems with, because actually it was a scene which explained much more, but then like during editing we realized the scene is like kind of way too long. So we had to do a lot of work, you know, and like kind of bring this down to a feasible length.
Yes, originally we tried to explain a lot of the theories regarding did aliens build the pyramids or not in this scene, but the scene went on far too long.
This is actually here, this gentleman, which you saw for a second, was like our floor effect supervisor, an English fellow. He's talking here again. It's Kid West. He did the floor effects, and is a very famous like floor effects supervisor. Won an Oscar, I think, for one of the Star Wars.
Indiana Jones.
Oh, Indiana Jones. He also was nominated, I think, 4 or 5 times.
I mean, I've been able to show a fully developed writing system.
Some of my favorite stuff with James Spader is this early stuff where he, in some way, I think it really kind of taps into him. He's a very smart guy and somewhat intellectual, and sometimes loses track of what's going on around. I think he played these scenes just beautifully.
That was one of my early rain scenes. I always like try to pack in like a rain scene in every movie because I love rain, and it's probably my like German upbringing. And in Godzilla, it ended up that I did the whole movie in rain. So now, like Dean, every time I'm like only mentioning rain in a movie, he's like gives me that look.
We going somewhere? You're gonna be fine. We'll take care of these.
Jackson, those your parents.
Oh, what photograph was that? I never got that. This photograph where that came from.
This again was one of our Morris the Explainer scenes, trying to shove in some character exposition before the adventure began.
Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs.
It's also the typical call for adventure, you know, scene where like kind of you see first the character in his like daily life, and then all of a sudden, you know, some people show up, and all of a sudden, you know, he gets you know, asked to do something else, which kind of brings him into the adventure. And because she kind of like tells him several things he's really interested at, you know.
What's it? Travel plans.
He kind of like decides to take this job. It's also nice with the music here, where you like, and somewhat like kind of feel that he's not sure what he should like kind of make of the situation and if he should go or not.
One of the unusual things that David Arnold, the composer, did was he actually came to the set when we were shooting and interviewed the actors, and they told him certain secrets about their characters that they wouldn't even say to Roland and I, and David was able to use that in the music to bring out some depth to who they were.
This was like a set built on stage. We do this a lot, that we kind of build like smaller kind of sets on stage. Not because, you know, of a special look, because it looks pretty ordinary, but it's like kind of like helps us to, you know, for the shooting schedule to kind of get more scenes done, you know, because like sometimes you collect 2 or 3 kind of smaller sets and shoot like scenes you normally would like shoot in 3 or 4 days. You can shoot pretty much like in half of the time.
This was a very important story element for us, which is the idea of a man who's left the military after his son was killed playing with a gun that was laying out, and now the father is somewhat suicidal. So when he's given the mission, even though he's told he may never return, it's okay with him, because it would solve his problems with suicide, but it also made him a very dangerous person on the mission.
Excuse me, Colonel O'Neill. We're from General West's office.
Kurt Russell's one of the most underrated actors of our time. He's really a fantastic actor and does so much with so little. It's amazing.
We're here to inform you that you've been reactivated.
Also, like a lot of people like kind of commented on that, like this scene we had to kind of shoot. We had to shoot like kind of before all other scenes because he has long hair.
Right.
And it was like kind of weird for him because he came like kind of pretty much first time, you know, like first shooting day, and he had to kind of shoot that scene, you know, which was for him quite to jump right into it. And from that moment on, you know, like there was like for 2 or 3 weeks, like kind of only one discussion. There was the hair color of Kurt, you know, because he wanted to have a lighter tone in his hair and his haircut. Which I think like in one newspaper they like kind of, but they always like kind of vote for the 10 or 100 dumbest thing done by Hollywood was like Kurt Russell's haircut for Stargate. So here now, like, kind of one of our biggest sets. That's only part of the set, but like later we see how big it is.
Richard Kind, who you may know from Spin City or Mad About You. He's marvelous in this film, doing a small part for us. And there are the tablets. The magical mystery tablets that has drawn James Spader's character into this. And if you just watch the way Spader plays the scene, I mean, you can really see what a subtle actor he is. I mean, he really makes you believe that this is a guy who can become obsessed with an idea, a thought.
Okay, Jack. Right to the
Hello.
moment.
This... Where'd you find this?
Giza Plateau, 1928.
The character Vivica plays was actually based on a woman we watched in a documentary about one of the temples in Egypt, a woman who had been studying the temple since she was a child when her father had studied at the same temple.
It's got writing unlike we've ever found before.
Those aren't hieroglyphics. Might be some form of hieratic or maybe cuneiform. Well, the translation of the inner track is wrong.
Was it like in a way it's like
Excuse me.
like James Spader is like more than champion. It was like kind of the fellow who kind of like deciphered the first time hieroglyphs, and he was like kind of the only guy who could really write fast in hieroglyphics, which he was like a genius of its time, and we always like kind of based James' character a little bit on that. His main forte is like kind of translation and his languages, and he's simply so fluent in it that he kind of sees things different in a different way than everybody else.
Now, by the way, all the Egyptian written on there is actually as accurate as we could be. Dr. Stuart Smith had joined us on the movie and helped us recreate ancient Egyptian, both in all the hieroglyphics you see in the movie, but actually in the dialogue. We later in the film we had the actors learn our best guess of what ancient Egyptian sounded like to recreate the language.
Afternoon, Colonel.
Which was strange later, and we kind of started, editing the movie because we really kind of didn't cut anything off. You know, even nobody understands. We always like kind of followed actually the scripts. You know, which Stuart. Here we saw, by the way, for the first time like Kurt Russell's haircut.
I think it looked great. I think it was a real daring choice.
But like some people were like really shocked about it. But perhaps like kind of they never seen Kurt, with hair like that. So, but for him it was really important to have this kind of totally different look. It was really important for him.
And it tells you a lot about him.
Personnel without my express permission.
Catherine, what's going on here?
Not sure.
Fixed quotient synapse.
Oh, I know. Colonel O'Neill, I think you owe me an explanation. I was told I had complete autonomy.
Plans change.
Why are you here? Why did they bring you on this project?
I'm here in case you succeed. Completed search of cuneiform and other predynastic hieroglyphs.
This like actually was like shot in the mountains in somewhere like the mountains behind Los Angeles by a second unit crew. All this kind of section is like kind of shot on stage. We kind of had this problem for this movie that we had huge sets, not only like kind of the sets here, but also later the big Egyptian sets. So we looked forever for like a stage, and then we found this like huge dome in Long Beach next to the Queen Mary, where the Spruce Goose, the biggest, this big plane built by Howard Hughes, was in, and they kind of like put this like to Portland to another museum, and there was this huge empty space, and it was the ideal studio space. It's huge, and since like we discovered it, like kind of they shot Batman in there. They're right now shooting like Jan de Bond's new movie. It's kind of very kind of popular now as a studio space.
The actor that James Spader took the newspaper from in that previous scene was actually his driver on the picture.
And the brother of Susan Sarandon.
And the brother of Susan Sarandon, that's correct. One of my favorite little pieces of music right here. I think the music really was fabulous on this movie. And for fans of Centropolis movies or TV shows, we bring in our actor Leon Rippey, who's been in many of our films in different forms. He chose, however, to have this strange little mustache, this strange hair thing, and it seemed very Hitler-like for some reason.
He looks like Adolf Hitler. When I first time saw him, I said, you know what, you look like Adolf. And from that moment on, I called him that. I was not very happy about that.
But he's a marvelous actor.
They couldn't solve in 2 years.
2 years?
Again, this was one scene where we have to explain a lot, and I think kind of James Spader does a great job in playing the, this distract, guy who's kind of totally in his own thoughts and own ideas, and kind of makes this scene a little bit more about character than only about the information you get.
In a science fiction film, these are always the hardest scenes to act in.
Figures that you would believe to be words to be translated were, in fact, star constellations. Now, these constellations were placed in a unique order, forming a map or an address of sorts. 7 points to outline a course to a position. And, to find a destination within any three-dimensional space, we need...
This was actually when we were writing the script. That's how I tried to explain to Dean how he could kind of show what, how the symbol actually works,
Well, 6 for the destination. But to chart a course, you need a point of origin.
Except there's only 6 symbols in the cartouche.
Well, the 7th actually isn't inside the cartouche. It's just below
That's here great how kind of James does this and makes it light and funny.
It's this little nervous laugh he does here that always killed me, though. It never got a laugh in the theater.
Funny little line.
I don't know why. It always cracks me up.
Anyway,
He did it.
No, that symbol isn't anywhere on the device.
well, what device? Show it.
There, in classic Kurt Russell style, with just a look, he shows you that he's more in charge than his own boss. Sign of a guy who can do a lot with very little.
This is here now a typical genre, science fiction genre moment.
The magic moment. And again, this theme music here is just spectacular. Instead of just looking at a piece of metal, it suddenly suggests magic, it suggests travel, it suggests adventure. All through the way it's shot, edited, and the music.
Stargate. Come, Jackson.
Technical personnel report to command center.
Monitors up.
Monitors are up.
Mitch, want to bring up the details on the center monitor, please? Yeah.
Fans of The Visitor will recognize Mitch as one of the actors from The Visitor, played one of the FBI guys. Also had a small part in Independence Day. That's John's story.
Hold it. Wait. Do you have a, Oh, here, sorry.
Hey, don't...
2 figures on either side, praying beside a pyramid with the sun directly above it.
He's right. That was in front of us the whole time.
General West, Jackson has identified the 7th symbol.
Go ahead.
Programming 7th symbol into computer. Chevron 1 is...
They still use these same graphics on the TV series today every time the darn thing starts up. We have nothing to do with the television series. Let me clear that up right now. We have nothing to do with the TV series.
Chevron 2 is holding. Engage. Chevron 2 is locked.
This is also a sequence where it's very complicated to shoot because the Stargate itself is this big kind of mechanical monstrum, which like kind of Kid West, the floor effect supervisor, we saw earlier in the movie, you know, built, and it always had to kind of like be pumped up. The hydraulic had to be pumped up, and everywhere like there were these shakers in the set, so to kind of like shake the whole set. So this was for the actors really hard because it made tons of noise, and they had to kind of speak over it, but also not too loud, you know. And they also kind of like always with a shock then realize, oh, I have to loop that whole scene. So, you know, it's always hard for actors, you know, to do this scene because the mechanical part of the movie nearly takes over. But I think they're all doing a great job. And
Here, one of the best effects in the movie. And something that at this point you'd not really seen in a movie before.
also we discussed to kind of do like, you know, like should we do this like kind of CG, you know, should we kind of do this computer generated? And then we kind of decided, no, let's go with organical elements. So what we did, we kind of had this like big glass tube, and we simply plunged something into the water. And what happens when a big object falls into the water, it makes this kind of weird, you know, like kind of like thing. And while we were showing something in, we pumped a lot of air in it, and it kind of, you know, created this kind of like great form. So, and the other thing was only like steering the back in the Stargate, you know, we called it strudel because it's a German word for this kind of like form. You know, we did like in simply steering, you know, water and filming it from down under.
This robot is actually a real probe that they used for getting things out of contaminated environments or packages that they think may be bombs.
Mm-hmm. And now you kind of see CG water, because for all the water service now, you know, it was better to get more detail with like kind of computer generated water, and because also it is like much easier can interact with objects. Also, it has to stand upright. And I think they did a great job in matching, you know, the real water with the computer generated water.
Can you believe it?
This was like a little instrument which was only pulled by some guy down under on 2 strings. And with a little sound, it looks somewhat convincing. It's all these little things where you try to save money in movies, you know, that you don't build for everything in mechanics, so try to move whatever you can with strings or by hand or...
In the Kalium galaxy. It has mass. It could be a moon or a large
This
asteroid.
girl
I
here is
swear to
like...
God she says asterisk there. It's
Yeah.
asteroid. Everyone else says she says asteroid. Every time I hear it, I hear say a large asterisk.
You know, and she is actually the wife of the DP.
but a wonderful actress,
Yeah, she's
and
great.
had been an actress a long time before they were married.
Outside of the known universe.
We're losing the signal.
This is the information the probe sent back to us. Freeze and enhance. You can clearly see the gate on the other side. Both gates must have functioned as a doorway between our worlds.
This actor here is David Pressman, who has died in almost every film we've ever made.
But in this one he survives because you never know what will happen to him. But perhaps, you know, you never know. The
These
sequel.
markings are different. They don't match the symbols on our gate.
That's why we may have to abort. This project is for naught without a reconnaissance mission.
Once on the other side, we'd have to decipher the markings on their gate, and in essence, dial home, in order to bring
Again, where we like kind of set up the
Based on
mission,
this new
where we
information,
explain,
I
you
don't see
know.
how we can do that.
Well, I could do that.
Big moment. I always like this kind of track-in.
Are you sure?
And where we also try to establish that Kurt Russell is uneasy about having the scientists on his team. That was a loop line he did later that was just perfect.
You're on the team.
Now this scene was originally cut out of the theatrical version, but again it was to show how that his part of the military team, or he in particular, knew something that the others didn't, which was that there was a potential danger on the other side of the Stargate. Whatever these things were that had beamed through and had been beamed directly into rock were a potential threat, and so he still wanted to study that. So here we see his character facing what he may have to face on the other side.
So in here we see like what we saw at the very beginning when they got the Stargate. We see again the how you call this, like
The fossil.
The fossil.
This was the idea that they had tried to beam through the Stargate, but the Stargate was buried in stone, so they beamed directly into stone and became instant fossils.
That's why I wanted you, Jack. We've opened a doorway to a world we know nothing about.
It's like actually this piece was like carved by like Patrick Totopoulos, who also designed, you know, all the Egyptian masks for Horus, Anubis, and the Ra mask.
Hello.
And it still hangs on the wall of my house.
I know.
have something for you.
No, I
Yes. I found it with Stargate when I was a child. It has brought me luck.
Always like this scene.
It's also nice when you find some sort of like kind of symbol or some object which kind of you carry throughout, you know, through the movie, where you like kind of first you see it with the little girl that you find, you know, when they kind of in Egypt, you see it now, and then later it all of a sudden becomes like really important for the plot of the movie.
This is the typical kind of humor that Roland and I like the best. In the middle of a dramatic sequence or something that has a lot of self-importance, just something that's just a little bit off-kilter.
This was like not a scene where like all the team, you know, the assembled team has to go like the first time through the Stargate, and it was like really interesting because all the actors naturally ask you, you know, how do I go through this thing, and what we kind of decided, or what I told them is like the best is, you know, nobody ever went through that thing, so there is no like kind of rule. So the best is, you know, you like kind of do it like you as your character, you know, would do it. You know, that means, you know, like kind of Kurt, you know, do it like kind of you think, you know, like this. What was his character's name? O'Neill, you know, would do it, and said the same thing to James Spader, and then we were simply rehearsing the scene, you know, and watched them, you know, doing it.
Fans of Third Rock from the Sun will notice that one of our soldiers here is actually plays an alien on Third Rock from the Sun.
You know, you see that like kind of Kurt, you know, like simply goes with one kind of decisive step,
grits his teeth
through it and grits his teeth and puts his weapons in there first.
Actor Steve Giannelli kissing his
kind of
St. Christopher medal.
Yeah.
Now, none of this was scripted, this whole sequence here, and I think this reveals a lot about who they are, and again, showed how Roland worked with the actors to create these wonderful moments, and this particular moment right here is my favorite moment in the entire movie, and it was not in the script. It was just created between Roland and the actor on set. Of course, the special effects people were screaming, no, the effect will never hold this long, we can't do it this way. And Roland said, no.
You know, actually, Jeff Oken, who was the visual effects supervisor, was like kind of standing with a stopwatch next to it and said, you know how long that was? And actually, you know, but that's the magic of it, you know, and without that, it would have never worked. And it shows that, like, kind of James Spader character is a guy who's fascinated about things and is, in a way, you know, has like kind of the fascination a child has with things, you know, when he sees something new.
This effect is the one that got the largest reaction in the theater. Nearly every time it played when it first came out, there was applause at the end of this sequence.
That's kind of very simply done. We didn't like wanted to overdo it. It was like more the speed and the sounds, especially, you know, which made this effect happen.
Jackson, it's all right. It's over. Stay with him.
Jackson, listen, keep moving. The way's off in there.
Recognize him? Now, if you notice here that we put little ice crystals on them, that somehow in the reforming of the atoms, that a great deal of cold would happen and would affect them in a way, but that it wears off very quickly.
Yeah. And these were the flares, you know, they kind of like constructed extra for this movie, and it was a nightmare to shoot with them. First of all, the actors were so scared of them. Secondly, they went out fast, so everything had to be timed. How long will the flare, you know, light? Because we decided here not to use any other light than these flares, which gives the whole movie, you know, the whole scene like a really cool look. You know, you have only flashlights and these flares, you know, and it looks, I think, like incredible.
These sets were the most beautiful sets. As great as they look on film, they were even more beautiful when you were there actually shooting them.
Well, this special set was like kind of relatively simple, but this one now is like kind of the first like bigger like stone chamber. But we also at the very beginning didn't want to show too much like kind of in that moment like wide shots, because we knew that like kind of the real kind of big moment comes outside. So we kept this all like pretty in close shots and then wanted to go, you know, go step by step, revealing more and more.
I want to take a look around.
This was one of the things, you know, that like kind of we decided to kind of put them sunglasses on, because we were scouting in Yuma and we were building sets there and we knew how bright it was there. So it like helped the actors enormously because it was so hot.
Now, even though when you see the wide shot here, the entrance looks like it's only part of it, but actually the entrance itself was built in real, and that was already 7 stories tall. Everything above that, the pyramid above that was, we would do either digitally or with a model composited. There's the entrance. That was all real.
And what also we had to build it in the middle of the desert. So we had to build kind of roads in the desert, and everybody told us it's nearly impossible. And then our location manager, Ken Fix, actually found out that the military kind of developed these
temporary roads.
Yeah, these plastic grids you can roll out, and then you sprinkle them with water on a every kind of 12 hours, and they simply keep the consistency of of a road.
Most people miss that in this shot there's actually 3 moons. But the whole point of having the 3 moons was to make it really clear that we're on another planet, that this is not just Earth, this is not just time travel. Some people miss that.
Then all these scenes, you have to imagine, were kind of shot in sand, and it had to be totally pristine sand. You couldn't see any footsteps, or if you see footsteps, only some of them because they just arrived. So this, when you like shoot with a 150 people crew, you have to kind of find ways, that they only couldn't walk on certain little paths, and then we had sand sweepers. So I think we had 30 of them.
But that never looked the same.
But it never quite looked the same, and to specially create this really pristine look around the set, because naturally the set got not finished as early as we wanted, so we brought in a kind of engine or a jet engine of how you call it?
Jet engine?
Yeah, jet engine. And blew for 3 or 4 days. This strong wind into this sand bowl to keep it as pristine looking as possible. And it's sometimes we corrected a little bit with the computer and erased some kind of marks or little kind of footsteps we saw in the background.
Classically, the storytelling of this movie is that of a stranded story. If you think of someone who's stranded on a desert island, or the Swiss Family Robinson kind of story. And this is the moment when we discover that they're stranded on this planet, that while the machine can bring them back, he doesn't know how to make the machine do it.
You assumed.
You're a lying son of a bitch! You didn't say a word about finding anything!
Kowalski, set up a camp down here. Organize our supplies.
Sir?
You've got your orders. I can't believe we're stuck here. Don't be such
all this was shot in Yuma, Arizona, and it was the hottest place on Earth.
123 degrees in the shade.
It was really murderous, and it was amazing how the crew and the actors, kind of dealt with it. We had special people who did nothing else than handing out water, because some people because they were work and do their thing, they kind of forget to drink, and we had several people all of a sudden pass out because they're dehydrated. Another thing was it's kind of the songers which right now on radio always wear sunblock. I mean, some people had shorts on, and only with the refraction of the sand got sunburn in places that never got sunburns before. It was really amazing.
This group of actors who played the other soldiers, we had to cut some of their stuff out when the movie was released. But luckily here we were able to put some of the scenes back, as you'll see as we go on. But they were really terrific.
Isn't there something you should be doing right now? Getting us out of here?
Again, a scene just to isolate James Spader's character from the rest of them.
Foot powder. Great. That's cool.
This scene is to establish that Kurt Russell has an agenda that the others don't know about, which is that he has this nuclear weapon that he has hidden, that in the event he perceives a danger could come through the Stargate and head back to Earth, he has the permission to blow up the Stargate to prevent that danger from coming to Earth. But it's a charge that he has that none of the other soldiers are aware of.
Base camp is up, sir.
That being the key he just palmed. These are the kind of things that I think James Spader just really did great. I just love him as the outcast scientist. I've never really seen him play anything like this. And this is when he notices the footsteps of the mastage.
So now we first time see this animal we call the mastage. Mastage.
And that was a Clydesdale horse, actually, in a suit that had a mechanical head. So the head that you're seeing being manipulated is being done through mechanics, but it's actually sitting on a Clydesdale horse.
When you see it in a wide shot, and when you see like only the head, it's like kind of a contraption they built, where you like have a kind of cable-controlled head. For example, here, they build a little crane, which is like kind of works as the like which holds the head and could do quite kind of amazing movements.
And Frank Welker did the voice of the Masters, all these growlings and things.
Again, this kind of animal was designed also by Patrick Tatopoulos, which in this movie worked the first time, and then he did later on did like kind of Independence Day on Godzilla with us.
Yeah, I love this creature.
I wouldn't feed that thing. It's got a harness. It's domesticated.
And again, one of the better themes of music in the movie. Now, this technique is done a variety of ways. Partially, we had a stunt guy pulled by string. There is actually a
little dog
with
in a suit with a puppet. This one too, which was like a little dog, and he had this like suit, and there was like a second unit crew like dealing with this for like 4 weeks.
Now that one was actually the horse pulling the stunt man.
Yeah,
that one's also the horse.
This one too. But whenever you see it very wide,
there, that's the dog.
That's the dog.
You can kind of tell if you really look at the legs.
Yeah. Here too, it's the dog with a little puppet. It's we're like.
This is the EU scene where everyone in the audience went. The French kissing mastage.
Again, and I always like kind of want to remember everybody. Just like every time we had to shoot a scene like this, was this thing? How many times can we do the wide shot? Because whenever we do once a wide shot, and we have all these footsteps, we had to move the whole setup. Like at least like kind of 50 or 60, 100 feet to the left, so we don't have any kind of footsteps again and have pristine sand again.
I love
this
that
was
shot.
like kind of a kind of down there. This is a set, and then the people is like kind of digital, and the background of the towers is like digital. And this was actually a huge like stone quarry we like used and dressed. This was the day where we had the most extras. We had 1,800 extras, and probably like kind of 2,000 stick people.
And the most mastages.
Yeah, and the most mastages and these ladders, and it was like kind of quite a big undertaking.
It was also our first day of shooting.
It was our first day of shooting, and when I kind of proposed this as the first day, everybody kind of said, "Oh, you must be crazy." But I thought it's always good to start with the biggest scene first, because everybody's fresh, everybody's well organized, everybody has his stuff together.
This is the introduction of Skara, played by Alexis Cruz, who did a marvelous job in portraying the sympathetic native when he had no language to use. He had to, again, learn this interpretation of ancient Egyptian, and that was really his only tools to communicate other than his expressions, and he did a fantastic job in the movie. The design of those cores are actually based on the Brazilian mines, the photographs we had seen.
Gold mines.
The Brazilian gold mines.
All right, Jackson. You're on. Me?
This scene always cracked me up. I mean, if you actually did meet another culture from another planet, what would you say to them? And he says, "Hi."
Hi.
And then from very classic movies, as Roland pointed out earlier, we were able to use the locket as the bridge between them.
This scene is a little bit inspired by The Man Who Would Be King.
Yes.
We kind of looked at
If you look really closely, you can see the extras in the background bowing on the first level and then the second level.
Yeah. This was like 1,800 people. It was the movie in a way is like not only a stranded story, it's also like a travelogue. You see kind of people traveling somewhere and then traveling from place to place, and then The Man Who Would Be King is one of my all-time favorite like kind of travelogue films.
Absolutely.
Hey. It's okay.
Their first contact.
Their first contact, and he's pretty much the leader of the Shepherd Boys, we called them. And this was like a group of like I don't know, like 20 Mexican kids of that area, because we looked for people who like have like a dark look and dark hair. and they became like kind of the like for the first assistant director, like kind of was always when like we said like shepherd boys have to be there, everybody rolled his eyes because they were kids, they were 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, and they always wanted to have fun, and they were not the easiest to keep quiet.
The idea being that their role is that they took care of the mastages, that they shepherded the mastages. And there was one of the more complicated ones because not only did we have our horse with the suit on, but we had to put the actor on top of the horse with the suit. So this was it's not easy to do.
And you see that at him, he's like not so sure about it. It's very kind of careful how he gets down from this thing.
This is the character of Kasuf. Again, a marvelous job of acting to relay the humor and yet make you feel like this is another planet.
Hey you! Hey you! Yahweh Mahatib, Yanak Kasu, Bayakak Navi.
I can't make it out. Sounds familiar, a bit like Berber. Maybe Chadic or Amatic.
Rajay Mao?
You may recognize him as the guy who bumps his head in the opening of Independence Day. And this was Mili Avital, who this was her first American film, but she had actually been a star in Israel before she came out.
It really trouble casting that part because we always looked for somebody who like has this kind of feel of like a girl who can come from Egypt, and we kind of like read a lot of actors, and then I think we were already shooting and we still hadn't decided yet, and our casting director kind of brought this like tape of this movie from Israel, and we pretty much like said that's the girl, and we wanted to kind of like said how we get her from Israel to kind of Yuma, Arizona. And then we found out she actually lived and went to acting classes in New York, and so one day later she was like out there in the desert, and after we met with her, we immediately sent her into makeup and hair and costume, and kind of she had she was like kind of pretty much hired on the spot on the set.
She's actually part Egyptian, part Israeli, which made her somehow uniquely perfect for this role.
He's inviting us to go with him.
How can you be so sure?
Because he's inviting us to go with him. We were looking for signs of civilization. Obviously, we found it. You want me to get us back home? This is our best shot.
Colonel, he's right. I took some readings on what they were mining back then. This is the same material as the Stargate. Radio base camp. Tell them to keep that area secured until we get back.
Again, this was one of the scenes that did not make it into the release, but it was just again to give a little bit of character and give you a bit of feeling of who these guys were.
Can you repeat that, sir? Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
So what's the story?
What's that? What's going on? They're not coming back. Okay?
Like French. He's really kind of great actor.
Speaking of the travelogue, this is one of the sequences where you really get the feeling of all the extras marching their way across the desert. A gorgeous shot right there.
Again, it was logistically kind of quite an undertaking, and the assistant directors did a great job in this movie.
They're the shepherd boys with the mastage. Now the towers in the middle, those are real, and those were built right there in the desert.
The rest is like a composite from models, done in the computer. We kind of filmed different towers and then multiplied them, but like a part, the gates itself, the two front towers, they were like a set. So here, for example, when you see the mustache on the right side, for a moment, it's actually like kind of only the head, like on tracks, kind of pushed, with the actors. Because it's too complicated with the horses to do these kind of things.
Another one of my favorite shots, this crane shot through the towers, where you really get a sense of the village.
The set was pretty much like kind of designed to do that shot, we tried it out in a model, and we have to kind of plan these things like pretty accurately. So also again, we tried to kind of shoot all these scenes late in the day, so we get this like kind of really beautiful light.
And again, the music is expansive and gives you the real epic feel. And now the symbol that connects our heroes to the other world. And the theme of the villain character begins playing.
Also, kind of the sound people meshed some kind of animal sound in there to kind of make it more kind of like ominous and dangerous.
It's the Egyptian sun god.
Holger Gross was our production designer. Did a fantastic job.
Yeah, terrific job. He was very kind of, you know, in when you went into the sets and saw the sets, you know, in real, it was like kind of, didn't look like sets at all because they kind of put so much like kind of work into making the walls really look like stone, and they did a terrific job. All these kind of towers were pretty much like kind of carved in foam, and then these big foam pieces were applied to the sets, you know, and we used like kind of so much scaffolding, which means like metal, you know, construction, you know, that like there's one company, you know, like actually some English fellows, you know, who do that, and we kind of needed so much, you know, of this like kind of metal that they had to kind of get another ship full of it, you know, to America from England, you know, extra for this movie.
Here we're about to see another scene that was cut out of the film.
We're going back right now. Let's go. Wait.
This is their attempt to leave, but the doors are shut, and the doors are shut because a sandstorm is coming.
But they don't know it. So the only thing they get like kind of like locked in, and so it kind of helps a little bit to kind of like the Skara, one of the shepherd boys, you know, because he's pretty fearless, and I think he somewhat like gets, you know, that it's important to explain them what's happening, and it kind of forms like some kind of bond between him and Kurt's character.
Right. I think this part was in it. It's just the last part that had been cut out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we've included it in this.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Hey, here.
This is actually a model, you know, the sandstorm shot, which we shot also in Yuma, Arizona.
Yeah, this part here.
Well, that would have been an excellent reason to shoot everyone.
We'll stay until it's over.
Shush.
All these kind of things were improvised.
John Deal. He's just a big, lovable teddy bear.
That's again a model shot.
Where'd that come from?
Kowalski, Brown, to your aid!
Again a model shot.
Now this scene is a loose homage to one of the Indiana Jones films when they go into the dinner sequence to have a bizarre meal.
Which again, like they did a homage to all these kind of movies about adventurers being somewhere in Africa or like in some like kind of odd place on this earth and have to eat like native food.
The performers do such a great job in this scene.
Well, we don't want to offend them now, do we, Daniel?
The sound makes it just that much more icky.
Huh? You said chicken. You said chicken. Tastes.
They don't have chicken on that planet, so.
Tastes like chicken.
Tastes like chicken. Good.
Jackson, you said that was an Egyptian symbol.
Yeah, the eye of Ra.
Would you say then that it might stand to reason if they know one Egyptian symbol?
Yes.
You?
Yes. No.
All these kind of like scenes are actually my favorite scenes of the movie because they kind of show how like kind of people trying to communicate, which is always something where you can't use much language, not much dialogue. You have to do everything, you know, if they have to act it, and you have to find all these little kind of symbols, you know, to kind of convey that they can't communicate.
One of the themes of the movie is that if you take away knowledge, you can oppress the people, and that these people are only kept slaves by the fact that they're not allowed to read or write or keep a history. So later, when they find the hidden history that from down in the catacombs, they're able to liberate and free the people.
They want me to go with them. Should I stay? I'll go with them.
Amelia's so beautiful. Look at her in that.
Yeah.
Now this scene coming up. This is actually an homage to a scene in Spartacus where, when he's in the jail cell, they bring him a slave girl as a gift. And we were inspired by that scene for this sequence here to bring these two characters together.
Interesting to shoot because they were like kind of these 7 older Mexican ladies, you know, and they didn't understand one word of English, you know, and I think like James was really scared of them because they took their job really serious.
No, please, no more, please. Please, no more. I'm fine. I'm clean. I'm. Oh, I thought you were one of the other cleaning. No. You don't have to do that, please.
This was to show that the character is insane.
No, it's okay. It's all right. Well, here. Oh, here, let me grab this.
There you realize it gets her in trouble because obviously this is like a custom of these people.
I'm very happy. Thank you.
Again, in the scene, we wanted to show how that the writing was forbidden. But when he tries to show her some writing, she originally resists. But then when she goes along, we realize that she's aware of the secret place that keeps the records of their people, the hidden history. Again, the idea being knowledge is power. That was the hardest line of the movie to loop. Do you remember that?
He had to loop that.
Because he goes, like 30 times. And he had to redo each one because there was noise problems on it.
Yeah, actually, that scene, you know, we had like some problems, you know, in Yuma, Arizona with the weather and, or like kind of going from one side to the other. And we kind of squeezed that scene in and shot it in some kind of like weird warehouse there. You know, it was like very noisy. And so we had to loop some of these scenes we shot in this like kind of bedchamber or whatever that was.
So she erases the mistake on it and redoes it in the way she's seen it. The same symbol that was on the Stargate.
Earth. You know the symbol? You know this symbol? You've seen this symbol?
There's also always like a magic when people can't speak to each other, you know. It's always like, I think, the most interesting scenes in the movie. It's like kind of a huge model.
Now this was one of the scenes that had been cut out.
Yeah.
That I think we've put back in for the special edition.
We'll never get anything in this storm. You'll have to wait till it passes.
Yeah, right. If it passes. You know, I was stationed in the Middle East. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. I don't understand. Why don't we just turn the gate back on ourselves?
Yeah, how hard can it be?
That's Jack Moore and Steve Giannelli, veterans of many Centropolis movies.
Vacuum of outer space. Do you have any idea how many possible combinations there are on that thing?
No. How many?
French Stewart is terrific. And I think this is where the scene started, actually, in the released version.
Yeah. And the whole landing was like kind of the spaceship, and the pyramid was like a model shoot, and we shot it outside. What's this place called? You know, like in that.
Chandler?
No, it was. We later had to move to Chandler, but like this was like kind of all shot like during this big earthquake we had.
Oh right.
And what happened, you know, we were like shooting these like kind of had all these models and stuff out there, and it was like very close to Northridge, and Santa Clarita Studios it's called. We had all these like big construction building cranes and stuff like that, and then the earthquake came, and we had to stop shooting, you know, for like I think like 3 weeks and repair the models, you know, one camera got trashed, you know, and had to move everything like kind of to Chandler Studios, which is in the valley. So this was a huge kind of setback for us, you know. Luckily it was covered by insurance, but still we lost all of a sudden like kind of 3 or 4 weeks of shooting.
Those are opticals, not digital effects.
The optical, you know, like the lightning is all done like kind of cell animation. But everything else is pretty much all like models. It was a huge kind of like crane which is hidden behind the model and slowly kind of brings this pyramid down. There were inside lights. And we did with huge wind machines. We did the sandstorm. It was quite exciting when we kind of shot it because it was. I like model work because everything what you have filmed is immediately like in the dailies. It's not like kind of with digital or computer-generated effects where it's a slow process.
You have to wait a long time to see anything.
Yeah. And they have their also like own feeling. Now here like kind of is this like horror attack, which actually was conceptualized first a little bit differently. But when I first time saw like the actors in these kind of like suits, which were these huge like animal heads, when I first time saw that, how they move, I said this is impossible. They can hardly do anything. So we pretty much like kind of came up with the idea to kind of do the whole scene, with POVs and show the POV of these like attacking creatures instead of seeing them, which actually was then like much more effective because I think it's much more scary when you don't see anything. And the whole set was actually built with all these columns, so you can, make a kind of exciting scene because it's all this like kind of maze of like columns where you never see.
You can really get lost.
Yeah, get lost and nobody sees the other person or what's attacking them.
And then for the first time we revealed the villain. And we tried as best we could to recreate the pose that this same villain had when it was in the petrified stone. But then this time it turns towards us and comes to life.
That's one of my favorite scenes, the cigarette lighter scene. We had a lot of discussion with our executive producer, Mario Cruzar, and other people, about that scene. Everybody wanted to always cut the scenes between them and these people, like, shorter, and thought, there's for such a long time, in the movie, no action. But I think, all these scenes, help that you really like these people and you can relate to them and relationships are formed. That's why you care about these people much more. So, like, later when, everybody gets in danger, you really care about them.
And it was important for us to show how people who can't communicate bridge that gap. I mean, that's really kind of what the movie was about. We were trying to resist the cliche in science fiction movies where everybody all over the universe speaks English. And so, it presented a problem, but it also, I think, made this stuff fun. And our little anti-smoking scene in here, it was a fun way to let these two characters bond. And to show that this one kid really admires the Kurt Russell character.
Also, he kind of lost his son, so there's like kind of somewhat,
a poignancy to it.
Yeah.
Not believe!
Yeah, you're right. It's pretty stupid.
Fine.
Also gives him here the lighter, which later becomes very important.
And helps rescue him.
And helps rescue him. Which then, like later, when we would have cut out this scene, it would have not made sense at the end. So I think with movies, it's like hard, you go into the editing process. Yeah, sometimes, you know yourself that you have to get shorter or you're going to tell the story faster. But also you lose a lot of like little things sometimes. And
here he overreacts about the gun because of the death of his son. Trying to overstress that the guns are dangerous. And the rest of his men don't understand the overreaction.
Kurt does here a great job.
What is this place?
Again, the idea that the original settlers who had come over through the Stargate had kept a history of what had happened to them, but it was hidden here in the catacombs.
It's also a little bit like inspired by like kind of the catacombs in Rome, where like kind of when like kind of Christianity was like suppressed, like kind of people used like kind of like these underground burying places to kind of like write down, their beliefs and. And here's the first time where he recognizes a word.
The idea being that we have no idea how ancient Egyptian really sounded, we all guess, and so suddenly he knows ancient Egyptian, and she's teaching him how to pronounce it correctly.
Tio.
Necher? Necheru? Necheru?
Nate. Naturu.
Nate? Naturu.
Nafi.
She's so charming. This was one of the more beautiful sets in the movie.
And it was actually the biggest set of the movie. They were like, kind of when we were shooting in that stage, they were still building and it made us all very nervous.
And this is the introduction of our villain character. Or, well, now that he is a villain, since we saw him in our new opening. Now you see him as the reborn alien Ra.
Again, was like a very kind of complicated, mechanical... The Kid West designed that. And it always worked, you know. It was always like, for me, a miracle, because there were so many parts to it, and it was quite complicated. And actually, an actor had to be in it. Actually, the first time we tried it out, I kind of climbed into it to show the actor that it's safe, and some part kind of fell on my head the other day.
No, there's simply not there.
Miyu.
Now he gets to impress his friends with his new toy.
The left side is what is the character, Nabe?
Miyu.
It's like a character, you know, where we kind of found this actor when we were casting Skara, and we kind of pretty much hired him, and we didn't have a part for him in a way, but we were so kind of taken by him, and he was such a cool actor that he actually comes from Switzerland, so we kind of developed during the shooting this little side character.
We're looking for Jackson. Jackson, guy wears this jacket. He's got long hair that comes down. No. It's he wears glasses so he can see. Just the word dweeb doesn't mean anything to you guys, does it? Yeah, why not? I'm on Planet X looking for a dweeb. He wears green fatigues. He wears this jacket. He's got long hair. It comes over his eyes. He wears glasses and sneezes.
I see that Skara is the smartest of them.
Chicken. Chicken man, you got it. You want this?
There were these scenes were really fun to shoot because Kurt is really good with kids, you know, and he's always kind of ready to improvise a little bit. Most of that scene was anyway a little bit improvised and kind of little things added. This was the most complicated thing, to get this horse only running for kind of 10 feet.
Because the horse can't see, and it was a very narrow place it had to run.
You know, we were also really afraid that kind of the horse hurts itself, and that was really hard.
Thought you couldn't speak their language.
Scared me. It's an ancient Egyptian dialect. I mean, like the rest of their culture, it's evolved completely independently, but once you know the vowels...
Just answer the question.
Well, I mean, I just had to learn how to pronounce it. I mean, it hasn't been a living spoken language in more than 1,000 years. I mean, look at this. It says, a traveler from...
This was kind of a very late addition to the cut. And we wanted to kind of explain the story a little bit better. And all this kind of part was kind of shot very late.
Originally, the character of Ra was not an alien, but he was put in charge of the planet by an alien. Later, when we were looking at the film at the end, the villain was not scary enough to be a good enough villain for our lead characters. So very late in the game, we decided to turn him from a human who was taken, and only his body was used, and the alien took over the body. And so this sequence here was a late addition to explain the backstory of how the alien took over the body of this young boy and became Ra.
All these little frescoes I kind of painted myself because it had to be done really fast, and not even time, you know, to kind of hire somebody for it.
It's very late in the process. That's why the eye effects for Ra, his voice, all of the morphing of the alien face on top of it, that was all done very late in post-production.
Inhabiting this human form, he appointed himself ruler. He used the Stargate to bring thousands of people here to this planet as workers for the mines, just like the one we saw. This mineral is clearly the building block of all his technology. With this, he can sustain eternal life. Now, something happened, where is it, back on Earth? A rebellion or uprising, and the Stargate was buried there. Fearful of a rebellion here, Ra outlawed reading and writing. He didn't want the people to remember the truth.
Jackson, I think you better take a look at this.
That's it? That's what we're looking for. They must have hidden it here in hopes that one day the gate on Earth could be reopened. I knew they'd have it written down someplace. Wait a minute. Where's the 7 symbol? It must have broken. It's gotta be here somewhere. It's got it. Gotta do.
Now he kind of like sees that the
off.
symbol is gone, and seems like kind of this trend for good.
Kowalski, Brown.
And this is our little goodbye scene that even though he's bonded with this local girl, he has to leave before he gets to really know her. Of course, what he doesn't understand is in their custom, when she was given to him, she's now his wife, but he doesn't know that.
Also, like kind of again, this whole like kind of complex was shot, you know, like in the early morning hours, and it was quite difficult because first of all, you go out in the desert and there's no light, so you're like with flashlights have to kind of position your camera, and you kind of have to scout it beforehand really carefully. And then we shot this whole sequence like over like kind of 6 mornings, you know. Every time I'd like to get up out of bed at like kind of 3:30 in the morning, drive out there.
And there's now the pyramid with the spaceship on top of it, which they had not seen before.
What the hell is that? Here. You might need this.
It doesn't look that steep, but that was actually pretty hard for them to run up that hill. Again, an action sequence, we tried to play more on suspense than on more on what you don't see than on what you do see.
It's kind of like one little shot where he kind of gets thrown in the wall. We simply kind of turned the wall, put it on the ground, and let's simply dropped him on it.
Why are we going to the Stargate? I can't make it work. Stay right here and shoot anything that comes down that ramp.
What are you doing?
Just cover me.
And while it may seem simple in the end, these rings were one of the great headaches of the movie.
Yeah.
What is that?
Now he discovers that the nuclear weapon has been taken. And just then, the villains appear.
But these rings were like kind of a combination. This actually is like kind of CG rings. And, but like we also had them as like kind of mechanical ones where we had only like kind of erased later the metal rods they were kind of sliding on. But they were like kind of pain in the neck, these things. They never quite wanted to work.
Sit down, Jackson.
See, all these kind of movements were like kind of the big rings, and this is like a model.
Some people never really understood the idea here was that this was a transporter that took them down from the basement of the pyramid that was really there, and then up into the spaceship. And so now they're up in the spaceship portion of it. Now this we originally had built as a model, but the model never really moved right, so we decided to go with the CG one, and we were pretty happy with the results.
Yeah, and it's also kind of why we did the first like kind of, you know, work in CG and got a little more like kind of familiar with it. And
that part there is a model.
Yeah.
But that's CG.
Mitaksoi.
Now comes the big staircase scene. It's like in a musical, MGM musical from the 30s and 40s.
But this was really our attempt to try and bridge the gap between an ancient Egyptian epic and a science fiction movie, of letting the two collide together, using images that are familiar, but then twisting it with science fiction.
This is also like kind of probably the The piece of music I like the best. It's the Ra's theme. Especially here when the choir comes in. We recorded the music in London.
And the choir is actually singing in ancient Egyptian as well.
And actually the Ra, when he comes down, is actually a stunt or like kind of body double, because it was really hard to wear this mask. It was this kind of like piece of kind of rubber glued to your face, and to make the head not too big looking. And
the idea is that Ra takes the most beautiful of the children and makes them his personal guards, and he raises them around him.
Also, they were like, again, like Mexican kids, you know, from like the Yuma area, and they had to run around with these haircuts like for the longest time. And here this is like kind of a CG effect, you know, where like kind of
the metallic headdresses retract.
Headdresses retracting. And
that's like, Jaimin Hunso from the fame of
he did like Amistad.
Amistad, yes.
The lead in Amistad.
Those of you who think he was discovered in that movie, we discovered him first.
And that's Jay Davidson. There's actually kind of like a lot of stories to tell about Jay.
But for legal reasons, we won't go into them on this.
No, he was like kind of amazing. I mean, it's one of the most amazing people I've ever met.
This was a kind of a chilling idea. It actually came from our executive producer, Mark Assar, that rather than high technology to protect himself, he simply surrounds himself with the children.
Because he knows these guys will not shoot at him then. He's jamming.
The burning eyes again, an effect we added very late. Now, of course, he assumes that this person is pretending to be him.
Colonel! It's me. You all right?
Again, in classic hero myths, there's usually a scene involving water and a near-death moment. So we tried to incorporate that here in their prison cells. Again, the combination of models and CG planes.
These were actually models. This was CG.
Now, this whole attack sequence, again, was something that Roland added very late. Originally, we only had the aftermath of the battle, that we didn't see the battle, but it felt missing. We wanted to see the villains being villainous. So this sequence was added after the fact, using some existing footage from previous scenes, and then some new footage that Roland shot over a weekend.
I didn't have much set, so I kind of shot everything like kind of very tight and kind of intercut it with some wider model shots.
That's Patrick Tatopoulos' child, actually.
Yeah. You see, all these kind of shots are very tight, and they were quite effective because, you know, you get the feeling that these people get punished for having done nothing.
And when the Shepherd Boys arrive, this is now where we originally had the scene begin, in the aftermath, but I think that it added a lot to see what the brutality, and that the brutality had been senseless.
شعوري يشتي خبري
لوعت مناتورة يرسخي بردانيا
He kind of slowly and very carefully kind of introduced like subtitles. I didn't want to do too early subtitles because when the people don't understand each other yet, you know, it would have been like kind of well, it didn't work because you know, it was like about like kind of learning the language. But now it's like Daniel has learned the language. You know, we kind of slowly kind of hear in the scene first time like kind of introduce subtitles, because later in the movie we use it more when like a James Spader character kind of talks with Ra, which is coming up.
So James Spader has now had his wound healed by the sarcophagus device. which we will learn is the device that has kept the body of Ra young for these last 10,000 years.
Also, we wanted to make this kind of thing like sound like stone, so it's some kind of technology you don't really, see on Earth. That like
these poor kids had to shave their head.
Yeah. It was like kind of a favorite sound in the whole movie that we constantly kind of use stone rumble, we call it, like kind of grinding stone, use it for all kinds of parts in the movie.
Now this scene was a scene that is added for the special edition that we originally cut out in the interest of time. But we always thought this was a really great creepy scene as he begins to find out a little bit more about the Ra's palace. So we get to see him exploring the palace a little bit and heading to Ra's private bath chamber.
The best film cat I've ever seen in my life. She did exactly what you wanted her to do. Normally, like, the shoot of animals and kids is, like, kind of really complicated, but in that case, this cat was
So this
amazing.
part here, the bath scene, this was not in the released version.
It was like Joseph Perot, the costume designer, was so proud of these shoes. He also designed not only the clothes, he also designed all this, like, kind of jewelry.
But this gives you a sense of the way Ra is pampered by the people around him and how eerie and creepy it is, the way he enslaves the people around him. I'm really glad we get to put this back in.
Oh, there's always something creepy when, like, kind of kids have to kind of work as servants. Because it is a very makes him, like, very dangerous and bad in a way.
And Jay's face is really perfect for this because he does look like an Egyptian, as we've seen in the old drawings.
And kind of in the contrast, the voice like sounds like from some kind of monster or something, which is a good contrast to his looks.
And to give us the feeling that the alien resides from within his body, but not perhaps in harmony with the body.
That was tough to shoot because both actors like kind of, or act, because they both speak like some language they have no idea about, so, but it's like kind of, what was his name again? Like the Stuart
Smith.
Stuart Smith, he kind of helped a lot. And constantly trained with them, the lines.
The costumes were just fantastic.
Yeah.
And again, the illusion of a god and using mythology of gods to control people. It was always a theme of the movie. So the idea being that he can only regain the mythology if the character of Daniel kills his friends in front of everyone and is obeying Ra as the one true authority. This scene is a scene we almost didn't even get to have in the picture because we'd ran out of time to shoot it, but we felt we needed it.
Dean shot it.
So we shot this on second unit to show how the kids were gathering together and learning the real history of their people. And as they learn this history, again, this knowledge becomes power, and they decide to begin the revolution when they learn that Ra is not really a god.
It was quite risky to have so much subtitle in a mainstream movie, but we kind of felt, it would be, like kind of stupid to let the people speak English, so we're like actually pretty proud of it to do.
This is a beautiful scene. I mean, just the images.
So here, like, the body double for, like, Ra had to kind of, like, had this mask on in, like, 130 degrees.
Well, this is one of our biggest extra days, too.
Yeah. And now you could, like, easily kind of do most of these extra scenes, with digital extras, but at that time this was, like, really not possible. We did some tests, but simply didn't look quite good.
So suddenly our character of Daniel has a terrible choice on his hand. If he doesn't kill his friends, everyone who had seen them will be murdered. These scenes really added a lot to the size of the movie and gave it a real epic feel, I think. Great little music cue.
There comes the lighter into play.
And suddenly Daniel sees that he has some support from out in the field. Again, the music helps us tremendously here. And the kids, which I think is great, they shoot in the air because they just want to cause chaos. They don't want to hurt anyone.
Here was the only day where the sun left us in Yuma, Arizona. I was not happy about that. It's hardly in the movie, but and here it's like it's not in the original version either. Okay, then that part where they ride away.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
The escape on the mastage. Before they just ran off.
Yeah. There's probably then also the sandstorm scene back in. Yeah.
Oh, that's
great.
True. The original idea is that they've run off on their own with. They've gotten on the master mattress has taken them off far away, but they get caught in a sandstorm out in the middle of the night. Yes. Oh, I always loved this scene.
Yeah, the horse didn't like the wind very much, but at least like walked like for 30 steps. And then never ever walked again.
We had dozens of giant wind machines blowing sand everywhere. This was really hard to shoot.
It was hard for the actors, and that the horse like comes back was like a miracle.
And the idea that the kids have gone off into the sandstorm searching for them, which I think is really great, that they're rescued by the children.
Here's the model shot.
And again, it was the mastage crying out because the mastage felt a bond with Daniel, and it was the sound of the mastage that drew the kids to them. Again, paying off something we set up very early when he gave the candy bar to the mastage. It's nice to have that back in the picture. That's a great shot.
It's an effect shot.
And now suddenly a rebel movement has been formed.
Here, Colonel.
Yes.
So what do you think? And they're not exactly special forces, but they sure were eager to join up.
Take these guns away, Lieutenant, before they hurt themselves.
And it like comes back to like kind of Kurt's character, kind of hating that like kind of kids have weapons in their hands.
There's no place for these kids to go. Anyway, we could sure use their help right now.
For what? Huh? To do what?
Why don't you just tell him everything? Why don't you tell him about the bomb?
What's he talking about?
It's like the big moment where he reveals his secret.
My orders were simple. Track down signs of any possible danger.
I think he does a great job there.
If I found any, blow up the Stargate. Well, I found some.
Well, your bomb is his now. And tomorrow he's going to send it back to Earth, along with a shipment of that mineral they mine here. And when that thing goes off, it's going to cause an explosion 100 times more destructive than that bomb alone is capable.
Here we added actually also very late, like one close-up of James and had to kind of put him in a wig, and I kind of see that shot. I know he has a wig on, even like probably the regular, person doesn't see it, but like I see it, and it always bugs me.
Blow up the Stargate, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
It's the gate on Earth that poses a threat. That's the one that we have to shut down.
You're absolutely right. But since you don't know how to get us back, we don't have that option, do we?
It's the typical like kind of moment before like the third act comes where all hope is lost, you know.
And our two heroes somewhat blame each other.
Blame each other. And it's also a scene, you know, we like had not in the original. I think the lead up to it, the lead up to it.
I don't remember.
I think that part maybe.
But this is again to show how brutal he is with his men.
Also, a fact shot we didn't have in there. It's like with a little scene where we only seem to see that these shepherd boys like kind of feed the animals. Simply adds a little atmosphere, but in the final version we kind of cut it out to kind of for time reasons.
You had accepted the fact that no matter
It always hurts, because all these like effect shots, were a lot of work and,
And this is where James Spader realizes that his partner here was suicidal and had never intended to go home in the first place.
I had a family.
And he finds out why.
No one should ever have to outlive their own child.
And that was a line someone actually said to me in real life when they had outlived their child. And when they said it, it just put chills in my spine. And I really wanted to put that into the picture to capture that feeling.
Such a hurry, too.
But he may have lost his child. But this one may bring him hope to fight another day.
Vibe?
That's right. The first part of that scene we didn't have in before, but the second half we had in the release version.
Like where Rob punishes his own people. There's Twyman again. So proud of Twyman.
You're Wesley too.
This actually was like a stunt guy really like pulled in a cable like through this room, and there was like no padding, so it's quite dangerous for the stunt guy to do that.
And this is an interesting effect where we sped the film up to give the idea of this intensity that's shaking the guy's head.
We actually shot it. We didn't do this optically. We did this because this has another kind of like motion blur when you do it in camera. You could not do this like kind of. It would be hard to do that.
And without any real blood or anything, it becomes very, very effective. You really feel the brutality of it.
Also in contrast to see all these people having like, kind of having fun, and you really like these people because they...
And this is when he realizes that the people think that he's married to... to Shiori. And this is her big embarrassment because he never accepted her. And I think this, again, it just adds a character thing that makes you care about these people and want our heroes to win in the third act. It's exactly the kind of thing that the studio wanted us to cut out. And she plays this so beautifully.
Yes, I do.
Io ti sai mai. E te ce ne lo sai.
Yes, I did. I think that's right.
Na te... Ne merionak.
Beautiful. That was a real sandstorm that just happened while we were out there. And Roland ran out with the camera and said, wait, I've got to shoot this. It'll be great for a transition.
There was like kind of this set I kind of started after like a couple of days to hate. This was this like little cave, we didn't have much money anymore, so the cave, this like hideout got smaller and smaller. And, I knew that we had to shoot in this like kind of set like at least for like kind of 6, 7, 8 days, and it was very, very tight and it was very hard on the actors and the crew kind of to work in it. And when we finally were finished in this cave, we were so happy.
Connect the moon.
Here our hero discovers the seventh symbol.
This is a symbol for this planet.
And again, the idea that he's able to communicate with someone else from a whole other culture, another planet.
What are you doing?
I found it.
What are you talking about?
The seventh symbol.
And now there's a reason to fight.
We're going home.
But again, dealing all in mythology, they've shot a god, and everyone's afraid of what the result will be. So they have to prove to everyone that it was not a god at all.
Sipru!
Nade, Sipru! Yuyukai! Yes, yes!
Pass off. Give me my Aturuti. Give me my.
It's a model shot with real sky background.
Yasu Shogun. Ya Khasibat.
Shimu.
This is an old-fashioned technique of parallel cutting two events happening at the same time, and which will happen first? Will the bomb get sent back to Earth first, or will our heroes get there and stop it? And it's fun to parallel cut these two actions.
These poor guys had always to walk with these hats on, and they hardly saw anything. Or here they had to kind of like stand, in these like kind of metal construction on the head and the heat. So it's like kind of looks now like kind of pretty easy, but it was like
This is our
quite an
Trojan
undertaking.
Our Trojan horse scene, where they're disguised as the shepherd boys who bring in the minerals, but it's actually our heroes trying to get inside the fortress.
What's happening up there?
But they only let the first one in before they stop letting more up.
How you doing?
Only Kurt Russell can pull that off. The best.
Damn! Come on, buddy!
So now the big showdown begins.
And this is quite a complicated action sequence, because we have what happens outside, behind the wall, what's happening inside, and what's happening above, all trying to interplay with each other.
And he thinks like
Skara has been killed. And once again he's lost his child, but this time he has the opportunity to fight back.
Hey, you okay? You alright?
that was the famous.
Those are CG ones.
Yeah, that was the most favorite thing to say from the crew. Miu, Miu, whenever something happened. Certain like kind of lines of a movie or certain words of a movie become totally like the inside joke of like the crew members.
We're dead! Quit talking like that, well, what are we gonna do? Cover me! Cover you!
A lot of these kind of like flying alien gliders, was really done like models on wires, and they were shot in the desert, in the real sand dunes, with like a second unit going for like kind of at least like kind of 4 weeks. And we simply told them like shoot as many kind of, of these shots in real, because it simply reduced our like CG and other visual effect budgets, and everything what you can do in real, you should anyway do in real. And it was simply kind of.
So Kurt Russell gets there first, and the bomb is waiting.
What are you doing?
Completing this mission.
Now their character arcs come to a head. Or does one really want to succeed, or does he really just want to commit suicide?
I'm gonna stay here, make sure this goes off.
And that's when he realizes that he doesn't want to live.
You got 7 minutes.
But Daniel remembers that the sarcophagus was able to bring him back to life, and maybe it could bring her back to life.
The rings again. like during editing, we did so many like versions of the scene.
This is actually one of my favorite moments. James Spader hated the line, but he was so good in this. You really get the feeling.
Jackson! Wait for me.
And this was a particularly hard fight scene to shoot.
The bomb now like also works as the ticking clock for the...
That was a very hard effect to do, because not only was the character moving, but there was fire going on behind him.
So that depended the fire back in.
We had to do this fight scene on the second unit, and because we had a very small crew to do this while we're shooting everything else in the soundstage right next to it, it took about 2 weeks to shoot this fight sequence. Again, to add some consequence to it, here's a character that we'd come to love as one of the cute Mastage boys. And then he gets it.
No, I still wonder, like, kind of how, like, Jay Davidson could, like, walk in this thing. He has on there.
You got any rounds enough already? We're all out of ammo. Incoming!
And it's also, like, kind of structurally, you know, to see that, like, there's really, like, kind of no hope. Like, kind of everybody is, like, kind of battling his own fight. Like, Kurt here with, like, Anubis, like, James Spader is, like, trying to kind of revive, you know, his love. And the kids out there, like, kind of fighting these alien fighters. You know, it's a pretty hopeless fight.
Kowalski, we gotta do something.
Hey! Stop! Hey!
This was a shot where we like kind of simply put the actor under this contraption, which, you know, the model, you know, was like kind of flew by on wires, you know, and it worked, you know. It makes it very weird looking.
So he's revived his love, but can he get her back in time? Again, those are models up on the hill.
Yes, sir.
Lay wait, Sancho.
And because we had shown him do it with the soldier, we now know how powerful that thing is he's doing to Daniel, so it adds this fear factor. Is he going to scramble Daniel's brains like he did the other soldier? Or will Kurt Russell do what he needs to do fast enough?
Give my regards to King Tut, asshole.
It was the 80s. We were at Carolco. Give us a break. You needed those kind of lines. But this was great. Only his head gets beamed up. The rest stays down. I always loved that. He gets it back, falls back down, and grabs, and vanishes. Now that scream, by the way, is Dean Devlin. I looped that scream. And that growl. So finally he can take the key out of the bomb. But it keeps on ticking.
It's the classic cavalry arrives scene.
And now the whole rest of the village, who's become convinced that the gods are not the gods, have come to join. And this gives us really some of our most spectacular stuff of the movie, where it's really like the old-fashioned epic adventures. And musically, again, one of the best cues.
It's always like this kind of music was used a lot in trailers of other
movies. Because it's so uplifting, and you really get this feeling
and
of
here there's like
triumph.
in the biggest shot here, you know, we had like kind of all the people running down there, and one of the extras, you know, for some odd reason, you know, was running all of a sudden to another camera which was on the side, and they were told to go run to the middle camera. And then everybody like
ran to the wrong place.
you know, like kind of followed him, and like kind of a whole big sand dune was ruined. But it was also the kind of like the evening when the sandstorm hit us, so like the next morning we could do the shot again, so I got really lucky on that one.
Then the idea of replaying what we'd like to believe happened on Earth when the Stargate was originally buried. Once again, the people uprose and overthrew their oppressors. Seeing this, Ra decides to make his escape and begins to activate the spaceship to get out of Dodge.
How much time do we have left?
45 seconds.
He's leaving. Turn it off.
I'm trying to. I can't disarm it.
What?
I can't stop it. They got it rigged.
So I'd have to do something.
I've got an idea.
It's always great when you can take a weapon and turn it against the villain. Now here, where we see the alien face from within, that was added very late.
I remember shooting that. Here we kind of like, because we didn't have enough extras, we moved the extras, you know, from left to the middle and then to the right, and then combined these 3 shots to 1 shot. It's one of my favorite moments in the movie, where the kid comes to him and salutes him. And a kiss.
You gotta have the kiss. But Kurt's reaction to it, I think, takes all the curse off of it.
I always knew you'd get us back.
Yeah, right.
Later.
Now that's a character who was going to play a nice role in the sequel. But then they killed him on the TV series.
Which, they killed him who?
They killed Ferretti in the first episode of the TV series.
How couldn't they do that?
Yes, I'm sure.
You gonna be all right?
But this was always a really nice goodbye scene, I thought. That he decides to stay with her.
I'm gonna be all right. How about you?
And he decides to go on and live.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Again, Kurt Russell can do a lot with a little.
Tell Catherine this brought me luck.
And the symbol goes back home to its rightful owner.
I will. I'll be seeing you around. Dr. Jackson?
and finally gives him respect for the first time in the movie. And then we have to throw this effect in one last time so that people can go out with one last little fun bit. And we just felt it had to say the end, because that's the kind of movie we're emulating. And that's Stargate.